drawn and redrawn, the making of India's internal boundaries.
Hi, and welcome back to India State Stories, a project that explores the evolution of India's political and administrative boundaries. This project is supported by the Center for Legislative Education and Research, Flame University, Pune.
Integration of princely states was a complex process which resulted in the new states that were divided into 4 administrative categories, parts A, B, C, and D. This series focuses on the 3 main categories that are part A, B, and C. In the first part, we will be exploring the integration of princely states that formed the part A states. In other words, they were absorbed and merged into their respective British provinces. These range from major states like Baroda, Kolhapur to smaller and little known regions like Sandur and patchwork of states in modern day Gujarat and Orissa. The merger agreements for most of the states were modelled after Orissa and Chhattisgarh state mergers, and their administration was transferred to provincial governments. Now let's look at the stories of each of these in more detail in the following episodes. Listen to the first 3 episodes of Season 2 to understand a deeper context. These episodes give an overview of the entire process of integration, along with an introduction to the legal instruments and some key personalities which made it possible. More details are in the show notes below, and let's dive in.
Today we're embarking on a fascinating journey back to a really pivotal moment in India's history, the integration of its princely states. Now, you might know the big picture, but we're zooming in on a specific and actually incredibly complex piece of that puzzle. The Orissa States. We've got stacks of historical documents, research, insights to unpack here. Our mission today, to really understand the unique challenges these states faced, the, ingenious, sometimes controversial solutions used, and the lasting impact. Get ready for some surprising facts as we explore how a newly independent India brought together, believe it or not, 26 diverse princely entities. Okay, let's get into it.
What's so compelling, I think, is that while the bigger story of integration is known, the specifics, like with Orissa, they just reveal how intricate and, frankly, how challenging it all was.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a rubber stamp exercise, not at all. It involved intense negotiations, local politics, a lot of very individual stories, often under huge pressure. And it makes you ask, how do you unify a territory that's so fragmented without resorting to force? And what can we learn from that today?
Absolutely. So let's set the stage. Picture India right at independence. And in the Orissa region, you don't have one solid territory. You've got this patchwork of 26 separate princely states.
26. It's quite something.
And they weren't all the same, were they? Our sources classify them A, B, C class, reflecting different levels of power, jurisdiction.
Exactly. Different sizes, different degrees of autonomy.
And there's a rich history here. Some rulers trace their line back to Rajput pilgrims. Others were descendants of Adivasi chiefs. They navigated allegiances under Mughals, then Marathas, before the British finally recognized them as rulers in 1888, after the Second Anglo-Maratha War. So deep roots.
Right. These weren't just lines on a map. They were historical entities, each with its own legacy. But often, this is key, lacking the real infrastructure for modern governance. You mentioned the classes. The largest state, Mayurbhanj, was significant.
Had some experience.
Some, yes. But alongside Mayurbhanj, you had loads of smaller states, just tiny ones sometimes. It created this incredibly fragmented political landscape. Other big A-class ones included Patna, Denkanal, Barmra, Baud, Gangpur, Kalahandi, Kianchar, Nayagar, Saraikela, and Sonapur, each a piece of this mosaic.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and complicated. The geography. The territories of these Orissa states weren't neatly bunched together. They were scattered, interlaced with the British province of Orissa itself, literally cutting it into 3 distinct parts.
Like a jigsaw puzzle.
Exactly, a geographical jigsaw puzzle.
And while that wasn't totally unique, you saw similar things in Deccan, Gujarat, Rajputana for Orissa. It created these huge administrative headaches.
How do you even run a province like that?
Well, that's the thing. Plus, many states were tiny. With hardly any resources, sustaining a modern administration, implementing responsible government. Almost impossible. It was a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, the sheer practicality of it.
Right. And our sources highlight something interesting. Those long periods of British minority administration, where the British stepped in, they hadn't actually prepared these states for self-rule. Kind of the opposite, in some ways.
So?
Well, Attempts to grant responsible government sometimes led to, well, bizarre outcomes. Menon mentions rulers and ministers just splitting revenues 50-50.
Seriously, treating the state treasury like a personal bank account?
Pretty much, or public offices just closing down. No system, no will beyond personal rule.
Oh.
Autocracy continued, really, with just a thin layer of democracy talk. It led to political stalemate.
Wow.
The British saw some issues, mind you. Back in 1933, they set up the Eastern States Agency, an administrative body to try and supervise these small, often shaky states, manage their affairs.
But not enough to prep them for independence.
Apparently not for the scale of change that was coming.
So, okay, picture the scene. British power is fading. India's independent. What happens next in these states? Suddenly, agitation for responsible government just explodes, right? Leading to spreading lawlessness, instability.
Exactly. And the local populations, often with large Adivasi groups, were politically, let's say, less organized, lacked strong political structures.
Making them susceptible to manipulation.
That's the concern raised, yes. Sources suggest some rulers, maybe feeling the pressure, even exploited local politics.
How?
Well, they were accused of sponsoring things like the anti-Hirakud Dam agitation, which the new central government saw as basically anti-national, undermining a key project.
So local issues getting tangled with national strategy.
Precisely. It shows how volatile things were.
Which brings us to the rulers themselves. What was their move? Facing this new reality, losing British protection.
Well, some of them, along with a few rulers from neighboring Chhattisgarh states, tried to band together. In August 47, they attempted to form their own Eastern States Union.
A bid for survival. Collective bargaining power.
Eventually, yes. A kind of desperate attempt to stay relevant, maintain some autonomy.
But did it work?
Not really. It wasn't a coherent group. No real linguistic unity or ethnic or even geographical unity. It was described, pretty bluntly, as a ruler's trade union.
Ouch. Focus more on their own incomes.
Yeah, securing their own positions and finances, rather than, the political hopes of their people. Many just weren't equipped for direct engagement with their subjects anyway.
Okay, so the situation is messy. Agitation, lawlessness, a weak rulers' union. This is where the central government steps in. Patel and Menon.
Exactly. Decisively. The state's ministry first sent a liaison officer, then a regional commissioner, to get a handle on things. But recognizing how critical it was, communal tensions rising, law and order collapsing, Sardar Patel himself went to Cuttack and Nagpur, December 1947.
He went personally. What was his message?
Very clear and very firm. He basically told the rulers, your states are too small, too poor. You can't sustain responsible government.
Tough talk.
Absolutely. He persuaded them, but also warned them. He said, look, if you don't merge, your own people might kick you out, and don't expect any help from us if they do.
Wow. And the Eastern States Union?
He insisted they dissolve it, said it had no justifiable basis, and crucially, he made it crystal clear. Orissa-speaking states must merge with Orissa Province.
Non-negotiable.
Pretty much. That directive really set the course.
So it was Patel's firmness, but also Menon's strategy.
Yes. Menon was key on the ground, negotiating. He laid out the consequences of not merging, like the government of India just taking over the administration directly, an even bigger loss for the rulers.
A carrot and stick approach, almost.
You could say that. And there was a turning point when the Raja of Denkanal agreed to merge. That influenced others. That decision plus the sheer instability, the pressure just became too much.
So most fell into line, but not all immediately. What about Mayurbhanj, the big one?
Right. Mayurbhanj held out initially. The Maharaja argued they already had responsible government, so why merge?
But it didn't last.
No. Within a year, his own popular ministers had pretty much bankrupted the state. Mismanagement, lack of experience, it creating chaos.
So the Maharaja had to ask for a merger.
Exactly. He requested merger with Orissa on October 17, 1948. A bit of irony there.
But even that wasn't straightforward. There was opposition.
Yes, from some of the Adivasi population. They actually preferred to merge with Bihar, citing cultural and geographical ties. It just shows how complex these identities were.
And that brings up another point, identity, geography. Saraikela and Kherson.
Ah, yes, a classic example. These two states were geographically surrounded by Bihar's Singhbhum district.
So technically in the Orissa region, but physically closer to Bihar.
And their Adivasi populations had strong links there. So you had Orissa claiming them, Bihar claiming them based on geography and local wishes.
Another headache for Menon.
Indeed. He had to arbitrate this dispute in May 1948, his decision. Transfer them to Bihar.
Why?
Based on geography, yes, but significantly also on the wishes expressed by the Adivasi majority there, an attempt to respect local identity where feasible.
Interesting. So the whole process wasn't uniform. It unfolded in stages.
Very deliberately. The smaller B and C class states signed first, December 14th, 1947.
Then the bigger A class states came around after more negotiation.
Right, and with Mayurbhanj finally joining, the merger was basically done by January 1st, 1949. And this whole agreement, this process they hammered out in Orissa, it became the model, the Eastern States formula for integrating other state clusters across India.
A crucial precedent then.
Absolutely.
So the rulers give up their states. What did they get in return? The famous privy purses, right?
That's right. They weren't just payments. They were framed as elementary justice.
Oh.
Or, more directly, a quid pro quo, a deal.
An exchange for merging, and calculated using that Eastern States formula.
Exactly. That formula became the basis. It considered things like state revenue, population, the ruler's status, trying to make it fair, systematic.
Did the rulers push for more?
Oh, initially some did. They wanted higher amounts. But Sardar Patel stood firm. He famously argued that these perpetual purses shouldn't be so high that they'd become targets for public anger later on. A balancing act.
Between recognizing the past and building a democratic future.
Precisely. These privy purses were crucial for a smooth, relatively peaceful transition. It acknowledged history while achieving unity.
And the amounts varied quite a bit.
Hugely, reflecting the states themselves. Mayurbhanj got 327,400 rupees annually. Patna, 249,600.
Even Saraikela and Kherson, going to Bihar, got settlements.
Yes, 88,900 and 33,000 rupees respectively. This financial part was critical to prevent more dissent, legitimize the whole thing, and provide a sort of dignified end for the princely system.
What an incredible story. A really deep dive into a crucial but maybe less talked about part of India's formation. We've seen how these 26 diverse states in Orissa, from huge Mayurbhanj down to tiny ones, were brought into the union. Not easy, filled with challenges, unrest, but also really shrewd negotiation.
Yeah, from that geographical jigsaw puzzle to the decisive actions of Patel and Menon, it's just a powerful example of nation building under extreme pressure.
Navigating history, identity, and the urgent need for a modern, unified state. It really shows what political will and pragmatism can achieve.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about drawing lines on a map. It was about forging a nation.
So what does this all mean for you listening today? Well, next time you look at a map of India, maybe think about the complex layers of history packed into those borders, and how that Eastern States formula, born out of the Orissa situation, set a precedent that literally shaped the country.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? When we face really complex, fragmented problems today, maybe in policy, maybe elsewhere, what can we learn from this? That balance between local needs, central authority, and, well, the fundamental aspirations of the people involved. How do we strike that balance now? Something for you to mull over.